Thank you for joining us for the third webinar in our series, Reinventing Experience Management with Agentic AI. In the first webinar, we offered insights into the future of experience management, how fragmentation can be addressed through end-to-end CX platforms, the impact of localization on customer engagement, and key areas where experience management programs fall short. And of course, the transformative role of generative AI in CX. In the second webinar, we focused on closing the loop, and in fact, we also discussed how organizations are using AI to abolish the loop altogether. In that webinar, we explored how Agentic AI redefines closing the feedback loop strategy. We learned ways to optimize feedback handling with automation and personalization. Discovered results where organizations improved customer satisfaction and NPS and resolution times. We also dug into where should we use AI and where should we ensure human oversight. And Vishal came up with an excellent point about using people's emotions to determine whether or not we should be directing them to a human or an AI agent. And we also discussed a roadmap for integrating Agentic AI into feedback management. If you remember, we said, start small, don't try and boil the ocean. Make sure you have lots of sponsors and centers of excellence and partners involved in the journey. Today, in this third webinar, we're going to dig into how AI is or should be transforming the metrics we're using to measure customer experience. And I'm really excited that we can have our panelists back again for the third time. And I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. Vishal, starting with you.
Thanks, Andy, and good recap. Good, lovely conversations that we have had over the last 2-3 months. Glad the audiences keep coming back for more. And there's, of course, a lot of good questions, which makes us think and probably come back with better answers each time. So thanks, everyone, for this. So talking about me, I work with Datamatics. I lead the CX function here, offering consulting and advisory to all the Datamatics clients. Fundamentally help clients implement XM platforms and implement Agentic AI. Been doing this, then working with the space of research and consulting for the last 20 years. Work with all the consulting agencies like Nielsen, Kantar. Academically, I have a background of economics and consumer psychology, and I think that's the perfect mix to be able to understand what a consumer would want, where they're at, and probably help them solve from a CX perspective. Very excited to be here.
Thanks, Vishal. Marco, how about you?
Hey, Andy. Good to be back as well. We're going to cover some amazing topics today. And my name is Marco. I work as a director for a global HR company where I've built a bunch of our AI tools for this very reason. And I'm currently working for another startup as the head AI architect, where I get to solve different problems for a bunch of cool businesses, and been fortunate enough to work with Datamatics and be involved in solving some of these unique new challenges that are coming up. So I work and just solve and hopefully make the customer experience a little bit better for all these businesses. That's pretty much what I do in an essence.
Marvelous, thank you. And my name's Andy Waller. I'm head of strategic partnerships for Datamatics, research and analytics. I've been in market research operations for 35 years. In fact, last time I revealed that I started work before we had computers, and that was very shocking for everybody. I've been COO of organizations. I've run operations in 60 countries. So that's me. It's just going to be a panel discussion. It's going to jump around a bit, and that seems to work for us quite well. I think it works well the last 2 times. There'll be 3 polls, and we're going to start off with the first poll. So, up on the screen shortly, you'll see a poll. Here we go. What's your biggest challenge with current CX metrics? You can choose one of these. Lack of real-time visibility. They don't capture personalization or emotion. It's hard to connect to business outcomes, or unsure how to measure AI-driven touch points. And if you've been on this, on one of the webinars before, you'll know that I invite our panelists to bet on which one they think is going to be the most popular answer. So Marco, why don't you kick us off today? Where's your money going?
I think lack of real-time visibility. I think that's just a huge delay. I think that's a big issue from when the decision makers and from the customer. I think there's a huge delay there, and obviously, I think they're not able to really link where the cause and effect is. So I'd put my money on that one.
Yeah, nice. Vishal?
Yeah, that'll be interesting if we get that one, because people are talking about real-time actionability and agentic AI, and if they don't even have visibility of the data, then how do you really put in the agentic AI in framework? But that's the gap. The wish list is too high, and it's very, very important that you get your data right to be able to do all of these things. But I think from this whole perspective, I'm still not sure. Maybe unable to being able to personalize to the second option, or unsure of how to measure AI-driven touch points between the two. So second or fourth.
Well, you've got to, you're gambling with your appearance fee, so you need to choose one.
Yeah, let's go with the second one.
Okay. Okay. So let's see. Right, Marco has doubled his appearance fee. Lack of real-time visibility in top spot with 53%. Okay, well that is interesting, as you say. If you haven't even got real-time visibility into the data, how can you hope to act on it quickly? But maybe this is one of the things that we can cover over the next 50 minutes or so.
Yes.
Okay, so let's start off then. We talked about what we covered on the previous webinars, and it's clear that organizations are starting to put AI into their experience management programs. And now we're saying, okay, well then what needs to change in terms of the metrics that we measure? Vishal, can I come to you on that?
Yeah, sure. But and if you may allow, maybe probably let's address the poll response as well. Because if people still are struggling, as in if that's the kind of thing that the struggle lies, where you're not able to get visibility, probably what we covered a couple of webinars back, that people have made the right start. Companies got it right that CX matters, it has to be measured. And to be able to get started quickly, not in any negative way, like we spoke the last time, but people have put in a band-aid approach. Okay, get the survey going. Let's get a platform where at least we are able to get a response. Get a platform where you're able to visualize it. Get a platform where you're able to do all the analysis. And all these are disconnected. It's not an end-to-end platform. So at least something is getting captured, even if you don't get to know what happened today, but at least a quarter later, you will get to know that, okay, this is what happened with my customers, and then you are able to improve it back. So visibility matters. And if you're in that state, congratulations, you got the right start. But I think today, migrating from that band-aid approach where you have multiple platforms, moving to a simple platform, and there are quite a few available. Qualtrics leads the space, but of course, there are so many more in each of the countries. There are a lot of startups offering the same service at a local platform level. Try and start exploring those platforms. Try and see what are the kind of migration opportunities to have the whole thing end to end, where all the surveys are trigger based, and you get to know very in a real time manner which set of people are giving you poor responses and how fast you're able to close the loop. Because remember, it's not about getting the feedback, it's about how fast you're able to close the loop. Each of those journeys matter. Every customer, every feedback is critical, and you should be actioning it in a very, very fast manner. And the least you should do is let the customer know that you're listening for sure. Just wanted to cover that up.
No, thank you. It's a great point.
Yeah. Coming to companies who are also aspirational of deploying agentic AI already, and then thinking about what kind of measurement should we have. I think fundamentally, because the nature of implementation changes as AI begins to influence and also at times act across customer touch points, the very definition of success probably changes. The metrics that worked in the human-only world are good, but probably not sufficient for the AI plus HI world. Um, let's take a very simple analogy here. So let's say, for example, we are in the world of in a world where there are no vehicles, no cars at all, right? And you want to go from a point A to point B. The matrix that you would look for is going to be, okay, what are the distance between point A and point B? How much time does it take? And then you would eventually arrive at, okay, the ratio of the two and what is the speed going to be, right? Because you're going to be all walking. That's all matters. So you will look at probably distance, time, and speed, and that's about it. But as cars have come in, right, which is new technology infusion, it's not that the speed does not matter at all. The speed definitely matters. But now there are many more things which will come in and which will start impacting, because the job of technology is not only now to take you from place one to place A to B, but also start tracking your comfort and experience. So then you will start measuring, okay, are the seats ventilated? Are there enough airbags? How smooth the light is going to be? What kind of traffic will you have? So in other words, technology then expands your measurement from only speed to also ease and comfort. So the same applies to customer experience. As traditional metrics are important, they still matter. You cannot get away from NPS and CSAT and first time right, or first time resolution, or the speed of resolution. All that matters. But as AI matures, new measurements also really start coming into play, and uh, and that's critical for you to really recognize. But again, very important that figure out what stage of evolution that are you are at. Evolution of implementing AI in your CX program, evolution of your CX journey. Uh, you could be at a foundation stage where honestly you should do nothing but measure only efficiency. Typically, the measures like TAT, response rate, first contact resolution, and so on. And it's very important as well. Like I remember consulting with a mid-sized telecom company. They just got this fundamental thing right, that as a ticket would come in, it has to be just routed to the right department. Just by doing that, which is a very base level automation, they reduce their resolution time by 40%. It is not that the resolution takes long, but figuring out who should own it, that is what it should take long. And this happens across companies. So even this base level automations really matter, and you should think about it. Or it could be at a second stage of predictive stage, where you have actually seen all possible journeys, all possible edge cases, and there is enough data available for the AI to be a little more predictive, where you're able to measure with anticipation what kind of churn risk is expected, what kind of emotions are there while the conversation is happening on chat or on call. Are you able to measure the intent? What is he trying to do? Is the customer going to really utter it, or is he trying to negotiate a better deal? So it's the predictive state where you are in, which is where you need to act before a customer really complains. Uh, Again, from a personal example, a few days back, I was talking to American Express, and we all have experienced their customer support, another world class. Of late, they've been pushing customers to look at chat and AI-based chat to get all the resolutions that matter. It works very well. But one such case, when I was trying to get an answer about my anniversary cycle and the dates, the AI couldn't solve for it. But while I left that chat that then and there, because I was multitasking but with some calls, within 30 minutes I got a call from American Express chat support, which is amazing. They are anticipating. This is where the AI comes into play. That the customer needs to be made a call, and that call was automated, and then a customer support guy came. And once a Amex customer rep talks to you, they are really charming people. They really get you the best of the things, and plus, of course, they give you a value at each time they talk to you. So that's how it's a predictive state that you are in. Or if at all you have crossed all these barriers, and a lot of companies in the e-commerce world have reached that, even in the travel and airline industry, which reaching the agentic stage, where all of this task of routine refunds, which is a very big part of your call drivers, rescheduling is also a big part of call drivers. They're able to automate that part of it. So even those have to be done, but then the measurement criteria is completely changed, getting into impact and trust, and of course we'll talk about how to really get that done. But then you need to know what level of evolution you are in, whether you are at the first level where you measure speed and efficiency, or you're at the second level of where you to measure anticipation, or you are the late at agentic stage. Then in that case, impact and trust matters the most. So assess and then accordingly decide what framework matters.
Great. Okay. So we're saying then, obviously, firstly, speed is important, right? The sort of coming to real time. I'm going to ask you to comment on this as well, Marco. So we've got speed there, and then what you measure changes dependent upon the maturity of your implementation of AI. But I think we're saying that still at the core, you're going to be probably continuing to measure NPS or customer satisfaction. Marco, what do you think on that?
Yeah, look, I mean, we're always going to have to. That's the name of the game. What can't be measured can't be managed. So for years, many of you obviously seasoned executive like yourself, Andy and Vishal, these customer care managers, operational leaders, these KPI, these original ways to measure was the backbone. And they gave us a way to obviously benchmark performance, teams and everything. But here's the truth. The AI tsunami is sweeping across the business landscape, and those metrics are actually, in some ways, will start to mislead you guys, or mislead executives. They were built for just a different time, very linear and very static, human only. And today's customer experience, as we've covered in the past, is very dynamic and it's hybrid. It's a blended experience between AI and humans. So we'll go through some of these old metrics. So we'll go with customer care, which was fine if you had one issue, one resolution, one survey. But in reality, today's journey doesn't look like that anymore. They unfold across multiple touch points. The customer might start with chatbots, live chats, then they get escalated to a voice agent. And, the benchmark now is they get an automated follow-up, all within the same hour. And if you were measuring that at the end of the complex journey, it's like trying to, take a photo of a moving train. It just doesn't really capture the whole thing. And you get the second example is the Net Promoter Score. Executive love this because it's pretty simple. Would you recommend us to a friend? That's the loyalty question. But the part where it flattens out is when you're measuring the nuance into a single number. It doesn't tell you why. Was it the chatbot's instant response? Like what you said, Vishal, with the experience you mentioned earlier. Was it the human agent's empathy or the clunky head off between the two that broke the journey? It's NPS can you lull leaders rather into thinking everything's fine when in fact half of your customers might be silently kind of annoyed, right? And my favorite one is obviously the customer effort score. I've never really had much experience with this, but it measures the ease, how to get an answer, but it ignores the emotion. If you think about it, like a customer might report that the effort was low. Yeah, it was easy to get my refund, but they still walk away irritated and maybe even feel disrespected. And that's not really loyalty. That's kind of damage if you think about it. So if you're only looking at the customer experience, you think, great, job done, but the emotional residue, what drives whether they return, churn, come back, it's very difficult to kind of isolate these little nuances. And so I'll go to this next point. They really start to mislead you. And I'll go into these isolated touch points, right, instead of the full journey. If you think about the customer had to re-explain the issue to a human agent, the dashboard says green, but the customer experience says broken. If you ignore the emotion, I think that's really important. Emotion and this is probably one of the single biggest predictor of loyalty. Technologies today where we can measure the tonality of the experience of a customer. So you get a new, I guess, metric, if you will, which we're implementing now. And so that's, you can give a customer 8 out of 10 and still walk away really angry. But if you had these new metrics, you can kind of like, yeah, it happened, but you can see that they were pretty annoyed throughout the whole thing. And you can figure out whether and why that's the case. And as Michelle kind of aptly explains, speed. Speed is the baseline of expectations. A chatbot responds in 3 seconds, feels smooth. One that takes like 30 seconds to feel broken, but the customer experience won't tell you the difference. So that you kind of get left with a dissatisfied, even if your survey says it was really all good. So to wrap this up, where's AI's contribution to all this? In my experience, what the impact right now is, most dashboard can't separate whether human impact from AI. So if your loyalty went up after deploying an AI assistant, was it because of the AI speed, or was it because of the humans smooth things over after the AI fumbled? Without these clarity, like leaders will be misled without these, what's driving these outcomes. So if you think an average, executives see like these NPS of 50 and think, yeah, we're stable. But what that really means is that half of your customers are promoters and half are detractors. And that's not really stability. So if you think about it, these metrics really, like these aren't minor flaws. These are massive structural blind spots in the modern era, if you really think about it. And if you're using yesterday's KPI in today's intelligent experience, you're missing the signal. You're not able to pivot fast. And realistically, you're looking at a rearview mirror while the road ahead is shifting in real time. And but yeah, I don't know, Andy, I think it's time to check with the audience where they think the next generation of metrics is.
Yeah, I think you're right. Thanks, Marco. Great answers, guys. Thank you. Okay, so let's launch the second poll then. So which next generation metric do you think will matter most in the AI era? And we're saying here responsiveness index, AI impact score, which is the contribution AI makes to customer experience, metrics around trust and transparency, or customer emotion index. And again, I'm going to come now to Vishal first. Vishal, what do you think is going to be the most popular response?
My personal favorite responsiveness really. Speed without personalization or feed without context does not lead to anything. So I think that's what should matter the most.
Yeah. Marco?
I think it would depend on what industry, but I think given the context of the and the viewers, the participants, I think trust and transparency metrics. I think that's going to be I think that has a high impact. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well, we had a question actually from the audience last time, and I should say if you have questions, we're going to be doing Q&A at the end. If you have any questions, put them down on the chat as they come in, as you think of them, and then we'll get to them at the end of this. Okay, responsiveness index top. So I think you might have won back your appearance fee, Vishal, for that one. And Marco, we're taking away your appearance fee again because trust and transparency metrics didn't come top. But I think for each of these, well, guys, what do you think about that? Is it obviously not a surprise for you, Vishal? Anything surprising in terms of it not featuring higher for anybody? Trust and transparency, Marco, I guess you were expecting a bigger showing there.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, this is a new world, and a lot of businesses, depending, as Vishal said, like depending where they are, they might not even really see it yet. It's not until you really implement some of these practices that you kind of really see it, both from your client side, from the customer side, but from your client side as well. It's the new currency, I think.
And talking of trust and transparency, as well, I was going to say, I think it was our last webinar, we had a question from the audience about trust. If you're using an AI agent, should you be upfront about that? I think we answered a pretty resounding yes. But it does come to that, it's fine if you're using AI as long as I know you're using AI. At least at this stage, until it becomes completely ubiquitous, which I'm sure it will, as you described there, the tsunami sweeping across the world, the way the shores of commerce, I suppose. Okay, so we've talked a bit about why the different stages of AI maturity matter. We've talked about how some of these metrics may not certainly don't give you the full picture, particularly in today's massively changing landscape. But so then, what are the new metrics that will matter? Can we go into that a bit? Vishal, can I start with you?
Yeah, sure. Sure. So I think, like Marcus spoke, that speed matters, but then is that the full story about it? So typically, the kind of conversations we have is that, and there are so many debates, so many discussions. We have all participated in many webinars telling that how AI can be used as an augmentation tool. So whatever you put together in front of the customer, whether it's going to be in the world of contact centers, in the world of CX, or any place that you're doing it, the idea is that while you gain the efficiencies of implementing an agentic system, but for the customer, it should still feel human-like. And that's the kind of game that we're into, right? That um, we are still not in a stage we have um, where we have reached the evolution of AI being able to mock up complete human experiences, but yet how much are you able to do it? So the game is now about how systems make you feel human-like and what kind of measurements can be done around it, which is why I think responsiveness was my favorite here, and that's exactly the lowest hanging fruit that you should look at. So moving from just speed of response, which was one metric that we used to have in the past, always the speed of resolution, to getting it personalized. And again, depending on the kind of maturity of the organization, the personalization can change. Is it just personalization in terms of the way something is it's are addressed to you with your first name? Or are you also be able to deep dive into the past journeys or the kind of products that you own, the past transactions you have done with the company, or the recent complaints that you had, or a series of this, whether you're calling for the first time or the second time or the fifth time, how connected your data is and how AI is able to comprehend all that very fast and then be able to respond back. That's where the game really changes. That instead of just saying, "Hi, this is the solution to it," from there that okay, I know that this is what you raised in the past. We gave you a solution that hasn't worked. You have come back again, which means something is not working in our regular solution. So probably I'll come back. It's not even about giving a solution. Where AI recognizes that this customer is complaining for the same thing for the second or the third time, which means my SOP is not working. I can't keep pasting my SOP every time, but I'm personalizing it that maybe my SOP is not working and I need to escalate it back to a human agent. So that's where personalization really comes in. And how deeper the integration, the better it's going to be all the time. So I think that's the first one that I would really, really recommend. Uh, Customer effort score, again, Marco brought that up, and I typically say this that there is now an AI edition of the customer effort score. So in the past, it was all about what kind of processes you have to go through to be able to raise or reach out to a customer support or raise a ticket or whatever that could be, or even just provide feedback. There are so many companies, the fundamental place where they fail, the reason they get so much negative feedback on the social media is because there is no way you can provide the feedback to the company directly. If you make it very easy for the customers to give you feedback, very few will actually go on customer on the social media genuinely, and that's a very fundamental part of it because the effort to give feedback is so high. uh, FMCG product, let's say a packet of sauce that I bought and it's expired, it still reached my home because I bought from retail store. Where do I complain? I don't know where to complain, and hence I end up on social media. But if there is a simple QR code available for me to respond and provide feedback to the company that this is what I bought, then it will not go on social media. So how much effort is it? And people want to reduce their effort in the traditional world. With the AI coming into place, I think it's less about the process, but more about the interaction effort. So again, instead of you having to dial, so you might have a QR code, but you still have to scan, or there's a number that's available on the label and you still have to dial and wait on the IVR and so on. How easy is the interaction? I think that's what is the new effort score going to get measured in the AI world. So lower the effort, higher the impact, and higher the stickiness of that channel. Then people stay back on that channel. If it's the reason people stay back on the social media channel is because it's easy. I'm anyway scrolling through my Instagram. I can always go to the handle of the brand and then comment what I like. The effort is the least. So how are you able to reduce the effort of the conversation for the customer using AI? That's what you should be really focused on. And I think third one, again, low hanging fruit, something that you should start measuring, which is how many customer complaints have been handled solely by AI. So the AI handle rate. And I think this is the fundamental part of it. Always look at how many AI were possible to handle at its own end. Also start splitting your NPS between AI only and AI plus HI kind of an NPS, and see where it lies, which one is higher, what kind of drivers are happening. Has your call times dropped because the AI was able to do it? Have the customers come back with better purchases, higher NPS scores, and better endorsability? I think these are the top three that I would recommend. There are a lot many more, but I think if you're able to get this three right, everything else is going to be corollary and going to be following in the same direction.
Okay, so and that's interesting because you talked about some metrics which you can which I would have called operational metrics, right? That you can measure your process yourself, and you can say, is it getting better or is it not getting better, and and what action can I take? So you sort of perhaps your speed is a metric which is an internal measurement you can create. But there's still a need to ask people. I suppose there's still a need to ask people what they thought of the interaction, right? So you can then determine whether AI is having a positive or negative impact. Is that right? We're measuring things that we can observe, and we're still asking people.
It's a mix of it, but before I answer that, I think the first point. So NPS, he said, will tell you where you are, probably the kind of health of it. But I think all this operational measure will tell you why you are at that stage, which is why they become really important as well. So while you may call it operational, but they're important equally to be able to figure out that why your NPS stands where it stands. Without all this, you will never get to know. And of course, some of this have to be asked, but many others, of course, can be directly concluded because you know the resolution time now upfront. You don't have to ask anyone. What used to take probably days and sometimes weeks is getting resolved within an hour, right? Refunds today, a lot of these cases are there where you just write to AI and the AI is refunding you money upfront. In the past, at least it will have a human to hear and then get an approval. So what used to take an hour is now taking a minute. So some of it is very, very behavioral data that you're able to get from your systems. You don't have to ask, but yes, many others you have to ask. And some of it goes in the direction of even bringing transparency and trust as well. That where you ask the customer that, okay, was the AI-led conversation helping you? You're bringing the transparency is at the same time you're trying to figure out and attribute it that AI is helping you reduce or improve the whole experience at overall level.
Yeah, I was going to come to you on that, Marco. What's your perspective?
So I want to talk a little bit about the accuracy part, and then how it's kind of interesting. Obviously, that doesn't sell the full story. Another angle is really about accountability, because accuracy alone doesn't tell us if the answer was right, but the customers just don't care about the answer. They care about other stuff. They care about like how it was delivered, whether it was fair, and whether they can trust it, and there's accountability that comes with it, right? Without it, accuracy kind of doesn't mean as much. So let's talk about this important point, which is about transparency and trust, like in the sense of metrics. These go deeper than like the traditional measures. They ask really tough questions. Did the AI act fairly across the different languages, demographics, customers, segments, especially for some of the esteemed participants that are joining us, that they cover a vast range of demographics. Was the decision explainable, not just a compliance team, but like in a way that the customer could actually understand it? And was there a human validation? That's a safeguard when the stakes were high. It's not really just a theory anymore. You could see this in like Microsoft Salesforce. They publish a lot of responsible AI dashboards and stuff like that. So they track bias, human oversight, explainability, and they're doing it because trust has become the new currency, right? And the end point really is responsible AI metrics could be both performance and trust. When you measure for bias, you can catch blind spots when they become scandals or whatever. These are non-trivial issues. They're quite, quite big.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think let's just look at that a little bit more closely, right? So, I mean, you spoke on a previous webinar. You spoke about the need, how responses, I think this was to debt collection, right? And how people's responses changed based on the tonality or the pace of the call, right? Which is obviously something AI can't replicate.
Yeah.
But that's something that you were able to measure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a
So,
game changer. Yeah. Yeah.
so I think there's, we talk about human oversight and things, and we spoke before about where it's appropriate to hand off to purely AI, but there are, clearly there needs to be this human in the loop in some way or another. Okay. So what we're saying here then is speed and personalization are critical. Vishal, you'd also say, you'd want to measure how easy it is for people to provide feedback and then be able to address those things. And I guess one measure of that might be how many people are resorting to going onto social media. That would be a relatively easy thing to measure, and you wouldn't have to ask people anything. And then what is the impact of AI in the loop, good or bad, on your sort of customer satisfaction metrics, whatever they may be. Okay, so it's time, I think, to look ahead with our third poll, which is to ask our audience, how they might be putting this into practice. So we're going to launch our third poll here. After today's session, what's the first area you'd like to reinvent? Is it real-time CX measurement, AI accountability metrics, emotion and sentiment tracking, or feedback loop automation? And look, I'm going to say my personal favorite now, put my appearance fee on the line. I'd say emotion and sentiment tracking would be the one that I would want to put in there. And the reason that I'd have that in there is because so much of what we talked about in this webinar, in the previous webinars, emotion plays a really important part, right? We all know emotion plays a really important part in decision making and building brands and things, right? Very few decisions are made rationally. So we know that, and we also explored using emotion as a way to determine which routes your customers should be sent. Should they be sent to an AI agent, or should they be sent to a human agent who can manage tonality and things? So that's my bet. Let's see. Oh, okay. I wasn't able to sway the audience with my favorite. I mean, I suppose real-time CX measurement, of course, that's important. We've said that all the way through. Guys, what do you think? Any surprises there?
No, I think this is how I expect it to be. I was expecting automation of feedback loop. I think that should be the big favorite. Because I think that requires a lot of work, and probably with this audience, I think that would have been a priority. But yeah, real-time measurement also matters, which is where you get closer to the real experience rather than a lagged feedback, which could be a more of a perception-driven feedback.
Yeah. What's interesting about, measurement, I worked with a guy a long time ago who said, what, it doesn't matter if a number goes up or down on a chart, if nothing actually changes in the real world. So, great that you can get instant feedback on your customer experience as long as you do something about it.
Yeah.
Right? Otherwise, you're just, it's what are you doing it for? So, I would have also thought closing the feedback loop would be more important than it was there. But then, I clearly am not going to get back my appearance fee. So I'm now looking at the chat questions. And the first one here, how can we use AI to create personalized experiences that feel human rather than automated things? That's quite a big question. Marco, let me let me hit you with that one first.
Oh, it's a tough one, but I think being practical about delivering, that is really comes from the top down, and understanding your customer. I'm sure there's some benchmarks on what matters to them. You're not starting from scratch, and targeting the low hanging fruit, I'd say. Don't if you're implementing AI and you want, this is an important part that you want to really nail right, just roll with the low hanging fruits and make sure that that the customer experience is good, and you roll it out in stages. I think that's a really good strategy. Flipping the whole table upside down. It's pretty. It has its risk, but it has its rewards, but it has its risk as well. So start with the low hanging fruit, start with the obvious, and then sort of see where how the needle moves. And yeah, I think that's a really pragmatic way to approach that.
Yeah. Vishal, anything to add on that one?
Yeah, sure. So again, of course, AI stands for artificial intelligence, and when it starts using that intelligence to make the experience feel human, that's exactly what the quest is all the time. So even for example, let's take a negative scenario where you are supposed to refuse a refund to a customer, right? Let's say a quick service restaurant is delivering something wrong or bad food in the customer's eye and is looking for feedback, and there is an AI bot responding back to you. So how humanly that response goes back. The good thing with AI, with LLMs, is that they are good with play of words. If you're able to use those words right, feel the customer feel that they understand the situation, and yet this can't be done for so and so reasons. How well the AI plays with the words, I think that's where the whole experience becomes a lot more human, that the AI feels sorry for it, not able to refund you, but this is the policy and that's how it stands. That's where the differentiation really lies. Instead of going the rule book way, which is how a typical bot would have responded, and sometimes even poorly trained executives respond back that I don't know what to do about it, but I can't refund. But AI has a better knack with words, and I think that's where the whole experience becomes far better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point. I mean, and we talked about this last time as well. It's by no means is every human interaction perfect,
Yeah.
right? And you quite often are dealing with a human customer service agent who has no ability to solve your problem, and are just reading lines from a script. So in that respect, I suppose some AI interactions are very human-like. But Marco, you said last time that the agentic AI, the difference is it's outcome based, right?
Yeah.
It's not following a series of processes, and that should be the gold standard, in my opinion. It's do you actually get your problem solved?
Yeah.
Yeah, and whether that's human-like or not, I don't know.
I think it's like a bit of both, right? Like and this is, I want to loop it back to the whole real-time uh, visibility, right? So I'll use the QA AI, for example. So you're at a contact center. You're managing a huge team. There's only a few quality assurance managers. Having that ability to be able to go back, hear the recording of that AI interaction, see the transcripts, and iterate such a fast rate. So you're not aiming for a bullseye, but your ability to iterate and make those adjustments to tweak that agentic AI, because it doesn't come out of the box, right? And it takes your team to be able to adjust. And I think that speed comes in. Where do you apply that speed? Speed in iteration, and having that transparency. They all come into play. Like all these little bits and pieces, when you apply them, you get really amazing results. But yeah, the faster you iterate, you can iterate fast because you're able to see it, the experience, hear it. It's because it's transparent, and you get some really amazing results when you combine these little aspects that AI has. These are the gems that AI can offer us, I think.
Yeah, that's a great point. Actually, because the question is, how can we use AI to create personalized experiences? Well, an answer is you allow AI, or you allow it to iterate, to the point where you and measure it, and to the point where you've got that personalized human experience. And the advice to start small and learn. I think that's been a theme in every one of our sessions, right?
Yeah.
Okay, there's another question here. Sharon would like to know, what other metrics are considered in CX other than NPS? Vishal.
Yeah, sure. So traditionally, of course, there are a lot of metrics, right from CSAT, which is about how satisfied they are, or like Marco called out, the customer effort score, or the turnaround time, first contact resolution, possibly churn rate, SLA compliance. These are all the regular ones that any CX program would have it. And as we keep moving on the AI side of it, like we spoke, uh, in fact, one of the measures that we did not speak about was the recovery index. Quite a few customers are now tracking recovery index as well, which is very, very interesting about so it could be done at two levels. One is recovery at the conversation level, that how the conversation started and how it ended. An irritated customer started, of course, being frustrated, and towards the end he was happy about it. Or a journey which has really, really gone wrong, and you are able to convert it, which means now the customer is not just a happy customer, but very much a loyalist, because he got the message that that brand really hears, and this is a brand that I want to really work with. So recovery becomes a very, very important measure to really have. But all those applies to typically in an edge case scenario, where these turnarounds happen. When you do it, the benefits are exponential. Yeah, I think those are some of the metrics that you should really, really track.
Great, thank you. I hope that's answered your question, Sharon.
Yeah.
Nilesh would like to know, as AI takes over more routine touch points, what new signals should CX teams start tracking to understand real customer emotion and trust? Vishal, could you take a crack at this one as well? And then Marco, you and I can pitch in.
Yeah, sure. So we always know, right, that the real customer sentiment is far beyond NPS. Why we make NPS god of all things, but the customer is saying a lot more. And all of us, then we choose to ignore those, because in the world before AI, we did not have the kind of effort or other kind of bandwidth to be able to process all that data. But now that AI has come into play, and there is scale available, automation available, we should definitely look for all the metrics, even small things, the choice of words, the tone, the pauses, like I said, recovery. And there is also a similarity there is another measure called as sentiment reversal, which is again, like I said, that if the conversion started negatively, how much has it changed positively? So there are all these new metrics which should come in with AI, and which are new signals that one should look for if you have the power of LLM really riding on top of the CX program that you have.
Yeah.
Right, Marco, anything to add on that one?
Look, that was amazing. Sentiment analysis, I think that's where I've seen such a huge impact on the customer experience, being able to measure that in different touch points. You'll obviously read the metrics differently, but having someone who can interpret that and action it, you'll see amazing results, because that's, as I said earlier, and actually Vishal, that's how you get loyalists to your brand or to your product, giving that emotion. And it's really hard because you didn't have the ability to measure that, but with AI, that new metric can really make a huge difference.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that, because I remember when using sentiment analysis on social media posts, and it was pretty ropey. It was very bad at understanding sarcasm and things like that. But presumably that's come a long way, Marco.
Yeah, it has.
Yeah.
And measuring it too, like on the upside and on the downside, really, right? Applying that to your happy customers, and what makes a happy customer, right? I think it's really important, and isolating that. And everyone has a bad experience with, can't get everyone right, but that you can edge out those certain outliers and not have them come back on the negative experience side. And I think AI is in that not sweet spot, but it's getting it's getting there to the point where, like you said, understand sarcasm. I mean, that's a really that's a very unique metric, but yeah, it's getting to that point now where you're able to pinpoint a lot of these unique sentiments, I guess, if you will.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. So there's another question's come in. If you had to pick just one metric that best captures customer experience in the age of AI, what would it be and why? Vishal.
Okay. So like I've already said, I think responsiveness is my favorite. I think that's one metric that I really, really pick all the time. Because how good is speed if it does not have the context? And that's exactly what gets amplified with the use of AI. I think that's one metric I would really, really use. Trust and transparency are also important, but I think the way we measure it, I think that requires an evolution. So in times to come, as AI gets utilized more and more, uh, maybe in a couple of years, my favorite will change to that. But as of today, I think responsiveness matters, which that's where you are using AI to the best ability.
Thank you. Okay, Marco.
I agree. And it's also it's the low-hanging fruit. So that's where we can have the highest impact, and it's the easiest to implement. And I think I'd agree with Vishal with that. It's practical,
Okay.
and it also gives you the best return on the economics of implementing AI, I think.
Yeah. And we did touch on that last time, right? There needs to, there's always someone counting the money, sitting upstairs in a suit. So, when you implement these things, you better show them the return on investment.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And for my part, I think I'd come back again and say, look, I think, if as you say, Marco, it's becoming much easier and more accurate to measure emotion and sentiment. For me, that's always been the great unknowable. Certainly within research, you try to ask questions that you can get you to understand underlying emotions because they're so important. You even have people with electrodes attached to their heads when they're looking at adverts and things. So, but actually, if now we're saying AI is helping us to understand the emotional response of our customers and how they're feeling in the moment, while it may not be the easiest to implement, I expect it might become the most important.
Yeah. I might add something else to that too. The trend is really shifting rapidly towards the trust of sharing with AI, right? Like, I think all of us can agree that we have had conversations with AI and been more open with AI more than probably like, on a human to human level, and so it's shifting in that way really rapidly. So if you were to measure these experiences, it's actually, you probably get a more authentic response if your customer was to engage with AI, because we already do. I mean, a lot of us do, a lot of your customers do, and the trend is heading in that direction. And it's no longer like this weird experience. And so I think you're getting a far more accurate feedback loop, I'd say. What do you reckon, Andy? Would that be accurate, or?
Yeah, I think so. That sounds
Sure,
good to me.
you've been
Yeah,
chatting to your
absolutely.
ChatGPT a few times.
I'm terrified of the whole thing. Right. Okay, we've got one more question. We've got time for one more. I think we'll take this one and then we'll wrap up. So, Marco, I'm going to come to you first with this one. What's the biggest measurement gap you see today? The one thing most companies are still not measuring but should be.
I'll drive it back again, sentiment. And largely because they can't, there's just, unless there aren't really many cases if you're not implementing AI, like you said accurately, there's just, it's the great unknown, right? So I think that's where a huge gap is. And yeah, I'd say so. And again, it's another low-hanging fruit to implement with a high ROI. I keep going back on ROI, but I think it's really valuable.
Yeah. Yeah. Vishal?
Yeah. So we all know that, of course, we don't always do the right things. There are times when brands make mistakes. So the metrics that we spoke about, experience recovery, I think that's what is something that nobody really measures in that way. It's still a very early new metric that people are figuring out, something that people can adopt to, because that's what will show you the strength of the whole CX program. Uh, and then if you really have a strong one, then you would have a very, very high experience recovery index, because typically you will have a lot of complaints, and how much are you able to retain and recover from those negative experiences.
Mm,
So focus on that, and that would be a new thing that you can start tracking.
excellent. Okay, I think we're going to wrap up now. Thank you both very much again for joining me in this webinar, and thank you to everybody in the audience for your thoughtful questions and for your attention. I hope you've enjoyed watching it as much as I've enjoyed participating in it. So, we started today looking at understanding AI maturity, understanding why legacy metrics are somewhat limiting in terms of what they don't tell you. And then we explored how next generation responsible metrics help capture trust, emotion, which we know is vital, and adaptability. You'll be able to catch up with this webinar on our website and the previous webinars. So please be sure to visit us visit us and stay inspired and informed. So it's www.datamatics.com. There's loads of great content on there. And please keep an eye out for our next series of webinars, which we'll be announcing shortly. Thank you all again, and have a good rest of your day.